Hello, Steve White, Steve White's 89. Well, Wonder Woman. She is actually coming to Australia on Boxing Day, so December 26th. I just got an email because I wasn't sure. There was talk of some international markets they were going to get her on the 16th, and I'm like, no, I don't want to have to wait 2 weeks and then decide. I want it to be my Boxing Day movie, so tickets go on sale in a few weeks. I'm definitely going to buy one because I at least want to contribute to the box office, but where I'll actually go, I don't know. It depends. If there's an outbreak somewhere, I'll be like staying home. If it's all zeros again and it's just donuts everywhere, I might actually go. But this, people thought this was a bit of an aberration, releasing Wonder Woman in the theatres and on digital as well on HBO Max. And everyone was kind of freaking out about it. But something even bigger has happened that's really shocked the whole industry. Basically, all Warner Brothers is just releasing its whole slate of films for 2021 on both digital and traditional theatrical opening. And I think HBO Max, they get 1 month or 31 days, and then it goes back to, well, it stays in the theatres the whole time, but they get a 1 month digital window to have it on streaming services, and then the regular continue will happen where it just goes to sell-free media and the regular things. So they are going to actually, because of the pandemic, because cinemas aren't open or they're running under capacity and people aren't going, and the further insecurity of the pandemic, because I don't know if anyone's noticed, but it's getting worse, it's not getting better in America. It's funny, we're heading towards Christmas, and we're going to have a spike from everyone who went to Thanksgiving who shouldn't. And I just was remember the other day, didn't Donald Trump say it was all going to be over by Easter and everyone was going to be able to have a big Easter? And remember that when that happened? That seemed like a world away, a universe away. So everyone's freaking out because June and the fourth Matrix film and Suicide Squad and all these big films are going to be released as both in theatrical releases and on the digital streaming services. And everyone's freaking out. And there's so many weird versions of this. There's the people who seem to be part of the group that starts with Q, and I can't say their whole name because my channel will be attacked again because I got attacked when I did a video on them before. But you know who I'm talking about. I mean, I want their name to be anonymous, but there's like a Q in it somewhere, if that's not too obvious. But I'm vague enough that I can't get in trouble again. They are just giddy because they see this as the end of Hollywood. The idea that they can't release films theatrical anymore and make billions of dollars, so they can't pay the actors tens of millions of dollars. So all these people are going to lose their homes and have to move out of Hollywood, and the whole industry is going to die because they seem to think that they are this evil sort of group of elites that are just destroying the whole world, and these people seem to need an enemy and someone to fight against, so they can destroy them somehow. I'm making a lot of hand gestures and they're not even on the screen. I don't know, I need to hold them up a bit. So that's freaky. And then there's the people who are saying, well, we knew this was going to happen and they deserve it because, that the studios are going to suffer because they just haven't done things we liked in the past, so we don't like them, so we're happy to see them fail, which is kind of selfish, but at least it's a little bit more rational than thinking they're part of some giant conspiracy that molests children and just all that crazy stuff from that anonymous group, who will remain anonymous on my channel. And the other lot, it's kind of weird, is there are people who are saying Hollywood is trying to buy out the cinemas because once upon a time the studios all own their own theatres and they just send their Paramount films to the Paramount theatres, and if you had a Paramount theatre, that's what you watched. At some point they stopped doing that and said, no, you have to all the cinemas have to be independent and they have to play everyone's movies. They can't just play specific companies' movies and so forth. And that stayed in power for years, and that fell through because they just didn't keep up because these things you have to keep them going in legislation and stuff, and they didn't. So it basically ran out, and now studios can buy cinemas again. So what they're saying is they've allowed the cinemas to die, because all these studios had films finished that they could have released, but they didn't want to because A, they wouldn't make as much money in this climate, but also the belief is they wanted to kill the cinemas, the theatres, so they could buy them back themselves for dollars and then use them when the pandemic is over to run their own films and get all the money directly. Because what a lot of people don't realise is the theatres get half the money opening week or when the first films first open, and then after that they get like 30% and the studios get like 70%. So when you see those films opening big with like 500,000 or $1 billion or whatever, they're only getting half of that. And then after that, I don't know if they get 70%, if the theatres get 70%, but the cut changes. So that's why theatres are always selling insanely, obscenely overpriced food, because they make more money out of that, or they make a considerable amount of money out of that, because they don't get all the money from the actual ticket. And the studios don't get all the money out of the ticket either, they have to split it. And the theatres, the studios are thinking, if we can cut out the middleman, the theatre, and just go straight to our own platform, our streaming services that we own, we get all the money. Because that happened with Trolls or something, they released it and it did really, really well, and they didn't have to pay anyone else, and they were happy. And a lot of people are saying that they're doing this deliberately. They've held onto the films knowing that the theatres will die, and then they can either buy them out or just wipe them out and go straight to streaming. Although I don't think any film's going to make enough on streaming to sort of sustain the old box office model, or that may just die altogether. So a lot of people are shocked that Warner Brothers is doing this. They're releasing all the films next year, both digital and theatrical releases. It makes sense to me, because people who don't want to go out because of the pandemic, or just don't want to go out because they prefer to watch movies at home, can buy them, because they weren't going to go to the theatre anyway. And the people who want to go to the theatre can still go to the theatre. They don't have to watch it on HBO Max, especially, or whatever streaming service they're putting on, especially if they make them pay for pay-per-view, which I think they should be doing. You shouldn't just get it free. You should have to pay for it at least, because then they get that money. And the other issue is HBO Max supposedly launched early because Disney Plus launched, but they didn't have anything to launch with, because they were supposed to have all the Game of Thrones sequels and a whole bunch of things that didn't happen. So they don't really have anything to sell, because the streaming services, a lot of them, they need the content, and a lot of them can't license the level of content Netflix used to have, because everyone has their own streaming service and has their own content now. So it's just, the streaming wars are a mess, the theatres are a mess. I remember thinking, because a while ago, I go to this theatre called the Astor Theatre here in Melbourne in St Kilda, and it's a gorgeous theatre. It was built in 1937 or 38. They actually screened Gone with the Wind there, and I saw Gone with the Wind there for the first time on one of the anniversaries. I don't know which one, 60th or 70th anniversary, and it was amazing. And I like to go to this theatre. It's the last theatre one of the last theatres I went to. They screened the Madonna baseball film, A League of Their Own. And they were going to screen Dick Tracy, and I was going to go out for that on the Sunday, but then we got locked down on like the Thursday or something, and it got cancelled. But I was there, and I was thinking, this is an amazing experience. Is this going to die? Is our cinemas going to die? Not even thinking about the pandemic that was coming, but just thinking in general, with digital media and stuff. And I'm like, no, I think this experience is going to live. People are going to want to still go to the theatre, want to go to the cinema, but it just won't be the main. There won't be cineplexes in every mall, which is fine, because I hated them anyway. They had no character. But the smaller ones, the independent ones, will survive. And through the pandemic, most of them have been. They've been showing smaller films, their own independent films. The films that just show old films, they could still go, because the same audience is going to go to them. But the ones who relied on the new big blockbusters, they cancelled. I mean, one of them went into bankruptcy, I think, when the James Bond film was delayed, because it's just like, well, we've got nothing, we're just going to have to close, and that's the end of us. So I was thinking, are they going to survive? And I thought, yes, they will. And I think they still will, because people are still going to want the experience. People aren't going to forget, even though we're used to not going anymore. One of the things that's sort of going to happen as we come out of the pandemic, and America eventually will the surviving population will eventually come out of it, and you may maybe think that sounds ridiculous, but they've lost nearly 300,000, and they're going to lose another couple of 100,000 after that. I can't talk. I don't know. My mouth's kind of dry. But yeah, I had to comment on this because I've been worried for years about cinema, because I love cinema. It's my favourite thing. No matter how bad things are going in my life, I can always just go to the movies, and it just takes me out of my world into another world, and it's like just a complete shift. And I really enjoy it and love it. And I was worried about it, and I'm thinking, no, it's going to last. And then this happened, and I never could have envisioned something like this shutting them down for like 6 months to a year and a half. And the damage that could do, not just financially, but also culturally, because people get out of the habit of going to the movies and stuff. And I'm like, I think when people come out of it, there will be this whole, I want to go back to what I used to do. And once people start doing things again, they'll get back into the habit. So I think cinema will come back, but who will own the theatres? How will it work? How will the studios work? It's just a giant mess, and I just like the rest of the COVID thing. I just want it all to be over. I just want it to be over, ended, and be on the other end and know what normal is again. And I know that some of the smaller little movie houses will always be open because they're like record stores, they're like niche, they're always going to survive. But I just don't know what's going to happen to the general industry, and will we have blockbusters again? Was Endgame really the end game for theatres and blockbusters? In some ways they were detrimental because they spent all their money on the blockbusters. They made $1 billion, and other films that could have been made didn't get made. So does this mean we're going to have, because the studio system collapsed in the 60s thanks to Cleopatra and mismanagement. And the 70s, you got a lot of independent sort of unique films, and then the 80s they managed to monetize that, and for a while it was great, but then it turned into the studio, like a repeat of the studio system again, and it was just the blockbuster, mega blockbuster era, and then they stopped making the smaller films. So there's a bit of a cycle, and I'm not sure if we're going to come out of this in a better situation or a worse situation, but it's a situation. I'm going to go because I'm waffling on and talking for way too long, but I just saw a few articles and I wanted to talk about this and sort of contemplate it and wonder what other people are thinking. And I find it bizarre how some people are celebrating this and others saying it's a conspiracy. And then some people like me are just like mourning it because they were happy with how it was before. So, yep. I'm going to go. Let me know what you think. Bye.